Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here this afternoon. This is the House Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs meeting here on Tuesday, February 14th at 2 p.m. Conference room 325 in the State Capitol and via video conference. My name is David Tarnas. I'm the chair of this committee, and to my right is Vice Chair Rep. Greg Takayama, and also Rep. Kanani Souza is here as well as a member. We have a number of important measures we'll be hearing today. Before we get started, if I could just ask folks, if you're going to testify, in order so we can get through everybody who wants to testify on this, if I could request that you keep it to 2 minutes in your testimony, and I'll ask you to wrap it up at that point. If you're testifying via Zoom, please keep yourself muted and your video off until you're called to testify. And then when your testimony is complete, please turn off your video and mute your microphone. And if you need to chat with the technical staff, go ahead and use the Zoom chat function. That is for technical issues only. If you're disconnected unexpectedly, just try to rejoin. I'll try to fit you in to provide your testimony then. Please avoid using any trademarked or copyrighted images, and I'd ask everyone on Zoom and everyone here in person to refrain from any kind of profanity or uncivil behavior, and please demonstrate your best behavior. It's okay to disagree, but let's not be disagreeable. We're all trying to find the best solution for the people of Hawaii. So with that, let's go ahead and begin our hearing. First up, we have House Bill 202 relating to historic preservation reviews. And up first, we have testimony from DLNR. In person, someone from DLNR here. Seeing none. We have testimony with comments from DLNR members. We also have testimony and support from City and County of Honolulu, Department of Design and Construction, testimony and support from Malcolm Barkars, Associated Builders and Contractors Hawaii. Please proceed, Mr. Barkars.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. ABC Hawaii stands on our testimony and support, available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from NAIOP Hawaii, Jennifer Camp. Oh, or her representative.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Evan Oe on behalf of NAIOP Hawaii. We stand in strong support of HB 202. The intent of the measure is actually to help expedite the review of projects and applications. Currently, there's a backlog of reviews ongoing, and this measure would help to relieve by contracting out to the third parties. We do respect the work of the previous committee, but we would respectfully recommend that rather than it being discretionary, that it be amended back to being a requirement in order to help expedite these reviews. So, thank you for your time and available for any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Next, we have testimony and support from the Maui Chamber of Commerce and testimony with comments from Dara Yatsushiro. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on HB 202? Otherwise, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you. House Bill 1200 relating to the Conservation and Resources Enforcement Program to establish an unmanned aircraft systems program. First up, we have testimony and support from the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Pleasure to see you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. The department will stand on its written testimony in support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your leadership at DoCare.
Thank you.
Next, we have testimony and support from AUVSI and testimony and support from Denise Antolini. Please proceed,
Hello.
Professor Antolini.
Aloha, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, members of the committee. My name is Denise Antolini. I'm a professor at the William S. Richardson School of Law, and in my spare time, president of Malama Pupukea Waimea. We're in full support of this bill. We thank the chair for introducing it. It was well supported at EEP with appropriate amendments. Just 3 quick points. One, this adds a really important tool into DoCare's capacity and toolkit. Drones, as you know, are used widely now, and DoCare deserves the opportunity to add them to their enforcement toolkit. Second, the bill will have guardrails for appropriate controls on the program, a transparent reporting process. And third, the appropriation, I know that's a fin and wham, ultimately a legislative decision, but that's very important because DoCare cannot do it on the existing budget, but I think the budget can be stretched stretch to have a very effective program. In conclusion, I want to commend DLNR and DoCare Chief Radula for supporting this measure, which will help DoCare move forward with all of its other wonderful programs to modernize our natural resources and cultural resources enforcement branch. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. And next we have testimony and support from Kanani Smol. Please proceed, Kanani.
Aloha, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, and members of the committee. I am testifying in strong support of HB 1200 HD1. I wanted to let the committee know that this is my first time testifying before the legislature. I am a third-year law student at the William S. Richardson School of Law. I'm studying environmental law, and I was a summer 2021 law extern for Malama Pupuke Waimea. And as part of my externships projects, I conducted legal research and writing regarding the use of drones for conservation law enforcement. My research focused on the potential concerns about privacy and admissibility of evidence obtained through a DoCare drone program. And based on my research, potential violators could not likely succeed on a privacy violation claim because in public spaces, they do not have a reasonable expectation of privacy and activities are in plain view. The use of drones will equip DoCare officers with the tools they need to properly monitor public spaces where natural resource violations are frequently occurring. The program will provide an effective and efficient means by which DoCare officers may deter natural resource violations and obtain necessary evidence to protect Hawaii's public beaches and other conservation areas. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much for testifying. Next, we have testimony from, in support from Sophia Morgan. What's that? Yeah. And is there anyone else here wishing to testify on House Bill 1200? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much. And thank you to Professor Antolini for your work on this bill and your advocacy for this technology. I think it'll be very useful. Okay, moving on to House Bill 668 relating to housing. We have first up testimony and support from Housing Finance and Development Corporation, Denise Isire Matsubara. Please proceed.
Aloha, good afternoon. Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, Denise Matsubara for HHFDC. We stand on our written comments in strong support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all the testimony we have on this measure. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 668? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Next, we have House Bill 315 relating to flooding. This appropriates monies and grants and aid to several counties for the mitigation of flood risks on privately owned roads. First up, we have testimony from the DoD Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. Please proceed.
Aloha, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Adam Weintraub. I'm testifying for HAIMA on behalf of Administrator James Barros. Thank you for the opportunity. We stand on our written testimony in general support of this bill with the comment that we would hope that it would be aligned with the existing hazard mitigation framework which the counties and state are already engaged in. This will help open the door for easier obtaining of federal funds that would support such projects. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from Alice Lee, Council Chair, County Council of Maui, and testimony and support from Dana Keave. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 315? Seeing none, questions, members? If not, thanks very much. We'll move on. House Bill 279 relating to the counties, authorizes counties to use the county surcharge on GET revenues, which we've already authorized. And we authorize the counties to use those tax revenues for the repair and maintenance of private roadways that are open to the public. On HB 279, first up we have testimony from the Attorney General. Welcome. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you. Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Janine Udui, and I'm testifying today on behalf of the Department of the Attorney General. As set forth in our written testimony, we note this bill may result in the unintended situation where public funds could be used to fund private roadways where they are prohibited to be used to fund the repairs for public ones. We have suggested amendments. Thank you. I am available for comments.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Next, we have testimony and support from Alice Lee, Maui County Council, and testimony with comments from the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation. We've submitted written comments. We'll stand and those be available for questions.
Thank you very much. And finally, we have testimony and support from Dana Keave. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on HB 279? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, let's move on. Thanks very much. House Bill 1404 relating to the Community Court Outreach Project, making that project permanent. And first up, we have testimony and support from James Koshiba, Governor's Office. Next, testimony and support from the Judiciary. Welcome. Come on up. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas and Vice Chair Takayama. My name is Brooke Mamizuka. I'm the Probation Administrator, and the Judiciary strongly supports House Bill 1404, House Draft 1, and I'm available for any questioning. Thank you for your...
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from James Tabe, Office of the Public Defender, in support. Thanks for being here. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is James Tabe. I'm the Public Defender. We do support this bill. This project has been a success. It started out in 2017, and it has been a success and continues to be so because of the cooperation amongst the prosecutor's office, especially Mr. Tom, who's seated to my right over here, and my office attorneys who are involved in it, and the community outreach coordinators that have been part of the program, as well as the judiciary. Currently, it's Judge Haya, and frankly, this is a time where I'd like to just acknowledge the efforts of the late Judge Lendio, who, if not for her, this program may not have been there. It was because of her. So we do want to point out that it should be permanent. We agree with that portion of the bill. We do not think that the codification of the procedures set forth in the bill is necessary. Other specialty courts that are, women's court, just passed last year, all the other courts, drug court, mental health court, veterans court, the procedure's not codified. And I think part of the reason why it's not codified is that it gives the programs, because these are relatively new programs, even drug court, though it's been 15, 20 years now, it gives them the flexibility to change the rules or the procedures to make it better, or if big circumstances come up. So we ask that those be removed. Finally, there is a funding issue that's been every biennium. I think the judiciary even points it out. We need to solve that because it seems kind of silly that you're funding them directly and then funding them indirectly. As for the prosecutor's office, you could give us their money and we'll ship it over to them. But other than that, I am available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tabe. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Department of Prosecuting Attorney in Honolulu, Mark Tom. Mr. Tom, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Mark Tom for the department. Department offers comments on House Bill 1404. Make no mistake, we enjoy our time working with the judiciary as well as the Office of the Public Defenders. I also would like to restate what Mr. Tabe indicated, the late Judge Darlene Lendio. She always mentioned to everybody that would listen about our program is that it's a very unique program. It's three legs to a table, three large agencies working together, hand in hand, making sure that this table or chair stood properly, everybody doing their part. Additionally, she always mentioned that we weren't a project, we weren't a program, we were a family. Everybody that came through was a family. And because of that, I will say that within families, like these three agencies, we have changes or disagreements. The most important part about a family, though, is that we always are willing to come back to the table and work out these disagreements. And I will let the committee know that we are still doing that. We are all still coming back to the table, working out logistics of possible changes in how we implement that program. And that takes time when you have three large agencies. However, I will say that although our first suggestion would be to defer this measure, I do understand there is appropriations in here. If we were to maybe strike out section 1 and 2, which codifies the policies and procedures of the program, that would be very beneficial, as Mr. Tabe indicated, for flexibility. If the committee does like to codify this program, the department would suggest, at least for the rules, similar to environmental court, something to the nature of the judiciary, the Office of the Public Defenders, and the Department of the Prosecuting Attorney shall jointly adopt rules regarding the administration, operation, and procedures of the community outreach project. Something to that nature. We can play with the words, but that would assist in having flexibility in this program as we continue to evolve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from Partners in Care. Next, we have testimony and support from the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center. And we have testimony and support from three individuals, Dana Keave, Lindsay Pacheco, and Will Caron. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on HB 1404? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, I will move on. Thanks very much. And I appreciate the testimony and the collaborative effort that the three agencies are using with that program. That's exemplary. Okay, let's move on to House Bill 75 relating to motor vehicle insurance. Increases in tiers, the minimum amounts of liability insurance coverage required under motor vehicle insurance policies. And first up, we have testimony from the State of Hawaii Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, the Insurance Commissioner's Office, in person. Wow. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Thomas, Vice Chair Takayama, members of the committee. My name is Gordon Ito, Insurance Commissioner representing the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We stand on written testimony offering comments that any increase in the bodily injury liability will raise premiums for the motor vehicle policy. I'm glad to answer any questions after.
Great. Thanks for sticking around. There might be questions. Next, we have testimony with comments from Hawaii Insurers Council.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. We'll stand on our
If you could please come on up to the microphone. Everybody wants to hear you, even online and throughout the building. So please introduce yourself and
Good
proceed.
afternoon, Mr. Chair. Allison Wioka for Hawaii Insurers Council. We'll stand on our testimony with comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Hawaii Association for Justice. Mr. Oi.
Aloha, Evan Oi on behalf of the Hawaii Association for Justice. HAJ stands in strong support of this measure, which seeks to increase the motor vehicle insurance minimums to more accurately reflect the rising costs of medical inflation and expenses associated with motor vehicle accidents. You know, just for background, the motor vehicle insurance minimums haven't been amended in over 25 years, which has resulted in over a 50% reduction in consumer protection. You know, the current lows are inconsistent with the, medical inflation. Typically, a motor vehicle accident will exceed the $20,000 that's there, and if there's an emergency or trauma involved, it'll increase over $50,000. So, this doesn't really cover any of those expenses. So ultimately, this is a consumer protection issue, and we want to make sure that our drivers are covered and there's adequate amounts to protect, pedestrians and other drivers on the road. So, happy to answer any questions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from State Farm. Matt Tsujimura.
Afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Matt Tsujimura on behalf of State Farm Insurance. You have a written testimony in opposition. I'll stand on my written comments. But I do want to point out that really at the root of this is the policy decision between adequate coverage and affordability for insurance coverage. And so I would also echo HIC's as well as the insurance commissioner's comments with regards to any increase in these coverage limits will naturally result in higher premium costs to consumers. And I will point out as well that should the committee feel that the measure needs to be passed, that we are asking for a delayed implementation date to allow for that transition to happen smoothly for all policyholders. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from the American Property Casualty Insurance Association of America.
Aloha, Chair. Annie Makapagal on behalf of APCIA. We are in opposition to this measure, and we just echo the sentiments of HIC and State Farm as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Geico.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, members of the committee. I'm Tim Dayton, General Manager for Geico. Geico insures 174,000 families, 250,000 vehicles in Hawaii, which is more than a third of the market. It might strike the committee as ironic that all the insurance companies and their trade groups are against this. Why would we be against selling more insurance? You know, that seems counterintuitive. And the reason is that not a small portion of our customers are going to be told they have to pay more for insurance. And that's at a time, Geico right now is just now sending out rate increases because our results in the last 2 years have not been satisfactory. So all of our Hawaii customers are already getting a rate increase. So who's this going to impact? It's going to impact the people that can only afford to buy what the law tells them they have to buy. So if you happen to represent an area that might not be as affluent as some other areas, this is going to adversely affect your customers. So if this passes, we're going to raise the rates for bodily injury liability. We're going to raise the rates for property damage. We are going to send out renewal notices, and we're going to add on uninsured motorist and underinsured motorist onto the policy. These are mandatory coverages with written right of rejection. So the only way that we cannot add those on is if we have a signed form, an option form, which is a 4-page complicated form. Most customers don't return it. So they're going to see a significant increase. On the other hand, who does this benefit? The people that can afford higher limits also can afford uninsured motorists. They can afford underinsured motorists. They can afford collision.
If you could summarize, that'd be great.
So, you know, policy choice, the choice is yours.
Thank you, appreciate that. Next, we have testimony in opposition from the National Association of Mutual Insurance Companies. We have testimony in writing in opposition from the Maui Chamber of Commerce and from 2 individuals, Dana Kiave and Andrew Crossland. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on HB 75? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thanks very much. Next, we have House Bill 525 relating to the Uniform Commercial Code, implements the 2022 Uniform Commercial Code amendments set forth by the Uniform Law Commission. First up, we have testimony and support from the Commission to Promote Uniform Legislation. Peter Hamasaki.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, and committee members. My name is Peter Hamasaki, appearing on behalf of the Commission to Promote Uniform Legislation. The Commission strongly supports HB 525, House Draft 1, which enacts the amendments to the UCC, which were approved by the Commission in 2022. I'm available for any questions. Thank you for your consideration of this measure.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on HB 525? Seeing none, members, any questions? Representative Ganadin.
To the Commission. Of course, you know, this is an obvious update to the Uniform Commercial Code. We need to be able to do adequate contracting amongst the states and in international relations. I'm just wondering, I haven't read the full bill. I'm not sure if many of us have. It's so big. What is the current statute of frauds? What is the, by that I mean, what is the amount of a contract that you have to have in writing and signed by the debtor?
I mean, this bill addresses really primarily the dealing with digital assets under the UCC. So, for example, it would address control of things such as, you know, Bitcoin or other intangibles which are subject to control. And it really doesn't address, I think, issues like, per se, statute of frauds, but it would address things like how you create security interest in these types of assets when a purchaser buys them, whether they take, free and clear of those types of assets. So I think that's the primary focus of these particular amendments.
Does this align us with federal law regarding those like digital coins, non-fungible tokens, those kinds of things?
So the specifics of the UCC really are to create default rules for private transactions that are regulated at the state level. It does not, for example, impose a regulatory scheme similar to the Securities Act or the Commodities Act. So the regulatory aspect is left to securities law, CFTC, SEC, or whoever happens to govern that particular the particular actors in that field. This is really more intended to create commercial law rules so that when people deal with it on a commercial law basis, there are default rules the intention is to apply really at a state level across the United States.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Are there any big changes to the Uniform Commercial Code?
I think the primary intent of the change is to really address any kind of ambiguities that may apply to how digital assets are treated under the code. So, for example, if you have a payment intangible that is, for example, Bitcoin, I think there was a question as to how that is treated in the UCC for purposes of creating a security interest. So the code, the amendments are really intended to address how digital technology and other emerging technologies would fit within, primarily, I think, Article 9, but to some degree, some of the articles like Article 2 and Article 2A.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Yeah, it's not loading.
We're moving on to House Bill 537 relating to electronic smoking devices. And we have first up comments from the Attorney General.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, members of the committee. My name is Rich Stacy. I'm a Deputy Attorney General, Unit Supervisor of the Tobacco Enforcement Unit. Our unit also handles the registration of electronic smoking device retailers now. We did submit comments. We are fully supportive of the idea of taxing and regulating electronic smoking devices and e-liquids. We did suggest amendments mostly we have suggested to put it, instead of a new tax law chapter, put it in 245. And part of the reason for that is we deal with right now we have 695 vape dealers that have to register with us basically by paper. 90% of those also have to register with dough tax electronically. So there's over 1,000 retail tobacco permit holders. There's almost 700 vape dealers, 90% of which are now registering with both agencies, and they're calling both of us because they're confused. So our suggestion was keep it in 245, and we have made suggestions in the testimony, and if that were the case, then our unit, instead of being duplicative, could be repealed, which is Part 12 of Chapter 128, and dough tax can do everything electronically. It would be smoother and more efficient. Other than that, we did make other suggested amendments. If that is not the path that the legislature wants to take, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for the suggestions on how to make government more efficient. I like that. Let's do it. Okay, moving on. Testimony with comments from the Department of Taxation.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, David Richmond on behalf of the Department of Taxation. The department stands on its written testimony offering comments, and I'm available for questions.
Great, thank you very much. Next we have testimony with comments from the Department of Health.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas and Vice Chair Takayama, members of the committee. I'm Lola Irvin, representing Dr. Kenneth Fink with the Department of Health. So the Department of Health offers comments, and we do defer to the Attorney General's office and the amendments that they have requested. We work together with the Department of Taxation, Department of Health, and the Attorney General's office in creating the language that you will find in HB 1077 for the approach, the construction, and the definition of putting in the regulation in the existing Chapter 245, because it is an elegant solution by including the definition of electronic smoking devices in what's already existing as tobacco products. That is also the way that USDA handles it. Electronic smoking devices are considered tobacco products by the US FDA. The Department of Health also wants to note that we have been asking for this legislation since 2014 because of the rising use of vape products by our youth. And we have been asking for parity in the way we handle cigarettes with then how to treat electronic smoking devices. And so ESD regulation can be handled in Chapter 245 if they're defined under other tobacco products. We are concerned that instead we do have youth penalty laws, and we have preempted the ability for counties to pass stricter regulations. And so we hope that we can address those issues by looking at what we can do with really the availability of these products and the easy access that youth have to them. Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide comments.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the Hawaii COPD Coalition. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. Mr. Yamachika, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We have submitted some fairly extensive written comments. We will stand on our testimony and be available for questions.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from the Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Next, testimony and support from the Hawaii Public Health Institute.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Peggy Mirzwa with the Hawaii Public Health Institute. Thank you so much for letting us submit testimony on this. We are in support of taxation of e-cigarettes. As the Department of Health noted, we've been working on this for 9 years. In fact, 29 states in the District of Columbia are currently taxing e-cigarettes. I do want to just briefly say in my written testimony, a lot of the comments echo the AG and the Department of Health as far as efficiency and ease go by putting the definition into Chapter 245. Which would also address the shipment loophole using either HB 833 or 1077. We use comprehensive regulation for cigarettes. The same policies need to be applied to e-cigarettes because they're all tobacco products. Hawaii voters feel the same way. In November 2022, in a poll of registered voters conducted by Ward Research, 73% of respondents said they believe vaping devices and e-cigarettes are tobacco products, and 91% stated vaping devices and e-cigarettes should be regulated as tobacco products. E-cigarettes are heavily targeted at children, promising exciting and tantalizing flavors while being visually appealing, decorated with trendy colors and familiar cartoon characters. These enticing products are easily accessed by our youth because of a lack of comprehensive regulation, including taxation. None of the measures mentioned jeopardize people's ability to access any FDA-approved cessation products, and it's vital for the health of our children and communities to quickly and comprehensively regulate these products. Thank you so much.
Thank you
We'll be
very
here
much.
for questions.
Appreciate it. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Americans for Tax Reform. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Tim Andrews on behalf of Americans for Tax Reform and our supporters across the state of Hawaii. We submit that the evidence shows that this bill will, rather than have positive public health consequences, will have a disastrous impact upon public health because the academic research shows that this is a bill that will lead to more people smoking and more people dying as a result. According to the FDA and all available medical evidence, vaping is on average estimated to be 95% safer than smoking. It is not completely risk-free, but it is safer than smoking. This was a number that came up that the UK government came up with, analysing hundreds of studies. The Royal College of Physicians came up with a similar number. Georgetown University Medical Center said if a majority of American smokers switch to vaping, 6.6 million lives across the country will be saved over the next 10 years. The Cochrane Review, considered the gold standard of medical meta-analysis, found that these, with high confidence, that these are more effective than other quit smoking methods. So no one wants kids to take up smoking. What we want is a method that has been proven safer for adults to quit, that the FDA has authorized products as appropriate for the protection of public health, and so on. Academic research conducted primarily by Dr. Abigail Friedman from Yale University and Michael Pesco from Georgia State University has found conclusively, and I quote, ends taxes are correlated with an increase in youth smoking. We have seen time and time again when these taxes are implemented that youth smoking goes up because people move, and adult smoking goes up because people move away from a product that is 95% safer to a product that is liable to kill them. This is what the academic evidence shows. The scientific studies and the research reports are all linked to in our written testimony. I'm very happy to answer questions, but I would strongly urge the committee to look at the science, look at the evidence, look at what is best to help smokers quit these deadly products and save lives. And taxing a product that is safer, equivalent to a deadly product, goes against all principles of good public policy and good public health. Thank you, and once again, happy for questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids Action. Please proceed on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Liza Ryan Gill with CTFK, and we submitted comments on this bill. We are in full support of comprehensive regulation on electronic smoking devices and support the comments that the Attorney General's Office and Department of Health have submitted, as well as want to echo the need for taxation on these devices. Youth are extremely price sensitive, and we will see a reduction in our youth, who are the main users of e-cigarettes, if we start to tax them. We appreciate your time and are available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Next, we have written testimony and support from the following individuals and organizations: Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks, Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition, Hawaii Primary Care Association, Hawaii Nurses Association, Opportunity Youth Action Hawaii, Hawaii Dental Association, Hawaii Public Health Association, Coalition for a Tobacco-Free Hawaii Youth Council, Papa'ola Lokahi, Student Health Advisory Council, Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center, and testimony in opposition from Hawaii Smokers Alliance. And we have testimony in opposition from Nicholas Winters and Anthony Orozco and Jessica Chang. Testimony in support from Patricia Blair. Testimony in opposition, well, I'm not going to read them all. There's testimony in opposition from 5, 6, 7 more individuals, and testimony in support from 16 more individuals. Is there anyone else here in person or on Zoom that would like to testify on HB 537? Yes, please.
Aloha, Kaigaka Chair, Vice Chair, and the JHA Committee. I'm Angela Melody Young, testifying to provide comments. So the U.S. Surgeon General reports that e-cigarettes amongst youth is a public health concern. The youth vaping epidemic is the result of evolved tobacco products. And so e-cigarettes and vapes, although they do not contain tobacco, they have nicotine, which is a very addictive chemical that is derived from tobacco, and therefore it is not technically tobacco. It's a tobacco product. And because of this, the FDA classifies it, and other state statutes classifies it as a tobacco product. So just a comment for the uniformity of the of our own state's statutes. Everything should say tobacco products when it's talking about vapes. So this policy is, the purpose of it is to regulate vapes. And vapes should be regulated because the fruity flavors appeals to the kids, and kids at public schools, private schools, all the schools, they're all starting to smoke vapes. So although, this isn't about criminalizing or punishing students. There should be regulations from the legislators and also from the industry so that students can be healthy. So thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on HB 537? Seeing none, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thanks very much. Moving on to House Bill 981, relating to criminal history background checks, authorizes a fingerprint-based criminal history background check by the county police departments of applicants for license to sell, offer to sell, distribute, or otherwise transfer electric guns or cartridges. First up, we have testimony and support from the Attorney General. Welcome. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Amy Murakami for the Department of the Attorney General. We strongly support this bill with the requested amendments to the bill. This bill will permit the county police departments to conduct a NCIC criminal background check on any applicant for a license to sell electric guns in Hawaii. Currently, the counties are unable to do a statewide fingerprint-based background check through the NCIC, and to make sure that the applicants do not have a disqualifying criminal conviction. The amendments that we are requesting are to make some clarifications to who would be the person subject to the background check as requested by the FBI, as well as to clarify that the reusing of fingerprints can only be for the same type of application. In other words, they would not reuse a fingerprint taken for a permit to acquire a firearm for a permit, a license to sell electric guns. Thank you for allowing me to testify in support of this bill, and I will be available for
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from the Honolulu Police. Welcome, sir. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Major Joseph Trinidad, Honolulu Police Department. I'm responsible for the Records and Identification Division, of which I'm responsible for the Firearms Unit. The Honolulu Police Department opposes House Bill 981 related to criminal history background checks. An electric gun is not a firearm as defined in Section 134-1 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes. It is a considered less lethal option such as pepper spray. Therefore, to require electric gun applicant to be fingerprint and photographed by the county police departments, or for the county police departments to perform a fingerprint-based criminal history background check would not be legal. A permit to acquire a firearm is not needed to purchase an electric gun. Additionally, there is no requirement to register the ownership of an electric gun with the city agency. The Department of Customer Services issues license to individuals or businesses to sell, offer to sell, distribute, or otherwise transfer an electric gun. The Honolulu Police Department urges you to oppose House Bill 981 relating to criminal history background checks, and thanks you for the consideration of our concerns. And again, I'm open for questions in the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from the Hawaii Firearms Coalition. Mr. Todd Yukutake. Welcome, Mr. Yukutake. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Okay. Good afternoon, Judiciary Committee. Todd Yukutake. Hawaii Firearms Coalition opposes HB 981. We just don't think it's necessary or needed. Basically, electric guns are not considered deadly or dangerous weapons. On the mainland, you can just buy them over the counter with no requirements. You could even buy one off of Amazon, and they just ship it to your door, and that's it. Knives are more dangerous than electric guns, and they don't require background checks for sellers. That's why we're opposed to this, and it does raise the cost of doing business by passing this. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Andrew Namiki Roberts. Please proceed, Mr. Roberts.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. I'm in opposition to this bill.
the background check required under this bill isn't actually just a background check. It also requires enrollment in the FBI wrap-back system, which is a system that's used to track pedophiles, to track career criminals, and report to the counties. It is not just a simple background check. It's an additional cost to businesses. The police department is not set up or able to do these checks. So I'm in opposition to this bill because it's a burdensome to the businesses and is unneeded. These people would already be prohibited from possessing the tasers that they wish to sell, and therefore wouldn't be able to have them anyway and would follow the law as a business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we received testimony and support from Dana Chiave, opposition from Andrew Crossland and Michael Rice, and in support from numerous individuals and in opposition from even more individuals. Is there anyone here on Zoom or in person that would like to testify on 981?
Excuse me. Yes, I'd like to testify. Michael Rice.
Michael Rice, please proceed.
All right.
In support or in opposition?
Yeah, I'm in opposition. I've submitted written testimony, but I declined to speak over Zoom until now. From my understanding, the background check that wants to be done for the tasers, like the FBI has already said, no, you can't use NICS for this. And another thing, I would imagine that people are already having to do a background check currently when they want to buy a taser in Hawaii. So at a time when they got to go down to HPD, pay another fee, get fingerprinted, do all these backflips at a time when violent crimes are increasing and we're trying to encourage people to defend themselves, especially with a less than lethal device. I mean, if you got to do all this, you might as well just get a gun, and that's definitely deadly. So I think we'd be trying to encourage people to be buying these rather than discouraging them. And I stand on my written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here in the room or on Zoom wishing to testify on HB 981? If not, questions, members? I have a question for Honolulu Police. Thank you very much for being here. This bill is to permit the county police departments to conduct these background checks on applicants for licenses to sell the electric guns, not to buy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Well, again, we have nothing to do with that part, sir. Actually, Department of Customer Services, they do that, sir.
they do the licenses to sell.
Yes, sir.
And so what this is saying that you would be authorized to conduct the fingerprint-based criminal background checks on these applicants. Do you do that sort of thing?
No, sir. But again, sir, in the testimony, electric gun is not considered a firearm.
No. The question is, do you do fingerprint-based criminal background checks?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is for firearms, sir.
Understood. Yeah, just wanted to make sure that you actually do that, even though you're saying you don't do it for electric guns.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure you do that.
Yes, sir.
Service. Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Next, we have House Bill 804, relating to firearms, adds the requirements of notifying the Terrorist Screening Center administered by the FBI as part of the gun permit application background check process. And first up, we have Deputy Attorney General Amy Murakami with comments. Please proceed.
Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, Amy Murakami for the department. We offer comments on this bill. We appreciate the intent of the bill, which is to require the county police departments to inform the FBI's Terrorist Screening Center of any and all applications for permits to acquire firearms. The purpose of this bill is essentially indirectly currently being accomplished every time the county police department conducts an inquiry to the NICS, which is for firearms, as opposed to NCIC. The NICS background check, they query the Terrorist Screening Center. So the Terrorist Screening Center essentially gets the information that a background check is being requested for a firearm to acquire. a permit to acquire a firearm. And currently, the Terrorist Screening Center does not have a mechanism by which the county police departments can directly inform them of the applications. For these reasons, we will respectfully ask the committee to defer the bill, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Jerry Ewan. In opposition, testimony in opposition from Todd Yukutake. Mr. Yukutake, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Aloha, Todd Yukutake. I represent the Hawaii Farms Coalition. We oppose this bill. Actually, we don't know what the purpose or a goal of this bill is. It's a little vague. And we are opposed to all the reasons. Is the purpose to only notify the FBI without further action? And as said before, the checks are already done for firearm owners already. So if that's the case, this is just redundant manpower, waste of manpower. If the purpose is to deny gun possession on a match, it would be unconstitutional because there's no due process. Even the ACLU agrees with that. Or if the purpose is to put law-abiding gun owners on the terrorist watch list, that's even worse. So that's why we're opposed to this bill. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Next, we have testimony in support from, let's go to those who are here or on Zoom. Testimony with comments from Michael Rice. Mr. Rice, please proceed.
Yes, hello. I'm signing up. I put in comments, but I'm kind of in opposition. Like Todd said, this bill doesn't really do anything. It just makes it so we have to spam the terrorist watch center's inbox whenever somebody tries to buy a gun. So there's no are they just going to start wondering why they're getting a bunch of faxes from Hawaii all of a sudden? Because as said, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems with the terrorist watch list. One thing, you do not know if you're on it even after doing something, and a lot of people are on there just because they share a similar name or an alias with somebody who is a known terrorist or is on the watch list. If somebody commits an act of terror and says, my name is David Tarnas, guess who's going to have a hard time at the airport from now on? Yeah, no offense.
So okay. I don't take any offense. Thank you.
But as I said, there's lots of people out there who share the same names. A lot of people are on this list just because their name is Muhammad.
Yes.
So this bill just seems problematic and unneeded. It's did anybody even consult the FBI about this first, or are they just going to start suddenly getting faxes saying Michael Rice is applying for a handgun, Todd Yukutake is applying for a handgun, Andrew Roberts is applying for a handgun? What's all this about? And that's the rest of my testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Marcus Tanaka. Please proceed, Mr. Tanaka.
Hi. So I oppose this bill. To add on what the others were saying, that there's no way of knowing you're on this terrorist watch list until you're pretty much at the airport trying to board the plane. I remember reading a news article that a 4-year-old had trouble because, again, that 4-year-old shared their same name and happened to be on the terrorist watch list. So, by informing the FBI of all these gun owners, I think I was looking at the Attorney General website, there's 26,000 firearms or something purchased annually in Hawaii. Is the FBI going to get 26,000 emails, 26,000 faxes that's going to have to come out? That's a lot of paper throughout the year, and that's every year. My testimony, I got the bills mixed up. My testimony for this bill is for the next bill, the HB 4, the next one, and that next bill is for this one. So I got it backwards, so pretty sure you guys got the idea, though. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Next testimony in opposition from Andrew Namiki Roberts. Please proceed.
Hi, good afternoon again. My comment is just basically about what the purpose of this was. We have a background check, and it says that the background check is conducted. The language on this bill says notify. The Terrorist Screening Center takes notification from government agencies about potential terrorist activity. And the way this bill was written, it really does make it look like just because I'm a gun owner in Hawaii, I'm going to be reported as a potential terrorist for the FBI to investigate. The background check process is already done by the NICS check and the other background checks that are conducted. This change is not needed. If I am on the terrorist watch list, they are already aware that I'm purchasing a gun by going through the background checks that we already have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And we have numerous other testimony in writing in opposition and a few in support. Is there anyone else here in person that would like to testify on this measure? Please come on up and introduce yourself. If you could take that call outside the room, that'd be great. Please proceed.
Aloha, representatives. My name is Ryan Harrell. I stand in opposition to HB 804 as submitted in my written testimony. In particular, the concern I had on the bill is on the first page. It states that individuals are placed on the terrorist screening database watch list when there's a reasonable suspicion that they are known or suspected terrorists. This is applicable for terrorists, but should not always be applicable to constituents that are seeking to purchase firearms lawfully. While we understand that terrorists may seek, to get firearms, they may not necessarily want to subject themselves to any background checks, so they'll find some other means to purchase firearms. Moreover, it creates a guilty until proven innocent type of platform, so that everyone who is trying to get a firearm is essentially guilty until there's a check on the list and they're proven innocent. It doesn't provide, there's no provision of redress or any compensation for applicable court fees or processing to remove someone's name from the listing should they have a name that shows up on the watch list due to a similar name. And also, this is an important part, terrorists have a keen interest in knowing who's on the listing since they kind of want to be able to carry out their interactions unopposed. Now, if someone with a similar name to them is showing up on the list, and it shows up in the media coverage because someone is getting harassed at the airport or actually any location where a name shows up, including a firearms permit application, the terrorists could just change their name, relocate, and pose a threat to not just your constituents in Hawaii, but throughout the rest of the nation. So in the interest of public safety, I urge that you vote no, so that terrorists can't just relocate or switch to a different means of harming constituents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Could I get your name again?
My name is Ryan Tinahero.
Great, thank you. And you did submit testimony?
Yes, written.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. So I was just going to ask, is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure, HB 804? Yes, please come on up. Introduce yourself, please.
Aloha, my name is Elima DaCosta. I am a survivor of gun violence. My daughter was shot and killed in 2015. I think that anything the state can do to ensure public safety within reasonable measures is appropriate. So I am in support of HB 804 because I think that it's reasonable to notify the federal government of any instances where people are purchasing firearms where they might engage in some sort of terroristic activity. So unless somebody is going to commit a crime and they don't want to be on that list, then maybe that would be the rationale for not wanting to be on the list. But I think the list is reasonable. I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't think it creates anything, an undue burden on these applicants. And from my perspective, once somebody's shot and killed, they don't come back. They don't come back from the dead, okay? So I think that this is a measure that we can use to help prevent widespread violence. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on HB 804? If not, questions, members? Okay, let me just go back to the Attorney General, Amy. So your testimony is basically that we don't need this bill because in the process of inquiring with the National Instant Criminal Background Check System that is done when a person applies for a firearm permit in Hawaii, that system automatically checks with the Terrorist Screening Center already.
That's correct.
And if the inquiry causes an alert banner to be displayed, then that system, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, will investigate the basis for the banner to determine whether the applicant is in fact a prohibited person. And once a determination is made, then they will inform the county police department whether the person is prohibited from acquiring a firearm or not.
Correct.
Okay, so this bill is, in your opinion, unnecessary because that's already done?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you very much. Any other questions, members? Thank you. Now we will go on. Next to House Bill 426. On this measure, first up in opposition, Pu'uloa Rifle and Pistol Club, Jerry Ewan. In opposition, next, testimony in support from Moms Demand Action, Ilima DaCosta.
Sorry about that, I have a few bills here.
Oh, so this is 426.
Yeah,
This
standards of conduct.
establishes standards of conduct for the firearm industry members. Yes.
Great. So similar with my previous testimony, I am in support of any measures that are reasonable in order to prevent gun violence. I think that it's not unreasonable to hold people to certain standards of conduct. These are not individuals who are just applying to get a license to operate any kind of nominal type of object. This is a firearm and it's very lethal. So I think it's reasonable, and I do hope that you will at least pass this particular measure. So, mahalo.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call out those who have either said they'll be here in person or by Zoom. We have Michael Rice testifying in opposition. Mr. Rice, please proceed.
Aloha. I'm testifying in opposition. Unlike what the previous testifier said, this applies mostly to FFLs, firearms dealers, and unfortunately it expands to pretty much anyone who would make an accessory. I mean, this piece of nylon right here is a firearms accessory that under this bill would supposedly increase the lethality of, because I can use that as a sling to keep the gun in place. Now, if I'm in a business where I make, aloha print pattern slings, then now I can be sued if some crazed maniac goes on a mass shooting because they use my product. I mean, the bill is just so vague, and a lot of the stuff, like I believe it says dealers need to deny the sale if they suspect the person is a prohibited person. That's already federal law, so it's I'm 90% certain state law as well. So it's like, why do we need this? Let's see, what else do I have? And the precursor parts for this is very vague as well. I mean, like with the technology now, I can take a block of aluminum and turn it into a machine gun with only a few hours of work. So are my bag of soda cans going to be a precursor part if I melt them down? I can make a very crude shotgun with a couple of pipes and an end cap. Is Home Depot going to have to get an FFL license now? And if I would refer to the pictures in my written testimonies, some illegal accessories can be made rather easily with everyday items. And I'd refrain from saying this in public right now to say exactly what they are.
Thank you.
And I stand on the rest of my testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Marcus Tanaka. Please proceed.
Hi, just wanted to clarify again, I got the bills wrong way, so, flip them.
Yes.
But this bill is pretty vague. It asks basically gun stores to take reasonable measures to know that they're not selling to a prohibited person. Okay? So the only reasonable measure there is would be have to do a background check on anyone who comes in to buy any kind of part or ammunition, because they could be sued and doesn't mean the other person can win in court, but they can be sued and defense costs still add up, which would put them out of business, and to do a background check on every single person who comes in just to buy a small part that could assist in firing a firearm, that's ridiculous. Disabled people often modify their firearms. So, say they have a messed up hand or disability where they cannot extend their arm all the way, they might buy certain parts that allows them to now use their firearm. And, you're going to have a background check every time something like this is purchased. Again, it doesn't make sense. And then on top of that, besides suing the gun stores, to sue the manufacturers and things like that, now you're crossing state lines if they don't manufacture it in Hawaii, say they manufactured in somewhere in the US, or, I've seen made in China parts also. Are you guys going to go international after these guys too? Or is it only for parts made in the state of Hawaii, sold, distributed in the state of Hawaii? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next testimony in opposition from Andrew Namiki Roberts. Please proceed.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. I just want to point out that currently California has a very similar law to this that is currently going through the court system. Having these regulations in place that restrict the ability for them to advertise or opens them up to lawsuits for protected First Amendment speech is not something that the state should be looking at. Not to mention that there's currently federal laws in place that prohibit lawsuits against gun manufacturers in this type of situation. We are looking to blame gun dealers and manufacturers for the actions of criminals. And, yes, we are taking sort of steps to help make sure that criminals don't get guns and that they should be doing that. But again, it's a subjective law. There's not clear criteria that would sort of designate what these actions they are taking could be. It's very much open for interpretation. It really does seem like it's just done with the expectation that these gun stores and dealers will be sued. We've heard that is the sort of goal right now of sort of anti-firearms, anti-Second Amendment organizations, which is to sue gun stores and gun dealers out of oblivion. If we can tie them up in the courts, it's very cost prohibitive to do business. And that's why the federal law was passed, was to stop that exact kind of situation from happening. So the state law that's trying to be passed here would be in contradiction to federal law and in contradiction to gun stores and gun dealers and manufacturers' First Amendment rights. I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Stephen Lee. Please proceed, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Stephen Lee. I'm just a private citizen. I oppose House Bill 426. The bill is vague and it unfairly subjects people in the firearm industries. It holds them accountable for illegal actions by third parties that they cannot control. This would be like passing a bill that a seller of a baseball bat or a steak knife would be held accountable if somebody used that in a crime. The sellers in the industry, I've been in small business all my life. And as a small businessman, I worked 60 hours a week. I worked hard. If someone were to target my business such as this, and I'm not in the firearms business, but this opens the opportunity for any radicals that want to go after a select group of people. A small group of radicals could put people out of business and hurt their livelihood, and it's unfair. So I oppose you to please respect and treat all businesses and all people fairly, and don't just single out owners of businesses or owners of guns. Thank you for this opportunity.
Certainly. Thank you for your testimony. We have received numerous written testimony in opposition and some also in support. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Why don't you come on up, and then over there. Please introduce yourself. Proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. Thank you for this opportunity. I am Deb Nemad. Excuse me. I am Deb Nemad. I am the chapter lead of Brady, Hawaii, and I will stand on my written testimony in support of this bill. And, I'm sitting listening to these comments about the poor gun industry, and I'm thinking about the manufacturers of JR-15s that are now marketing JR-15s, a smaller version of the AR-15s, to the youth. And one of the reasons they get away with this is because they did manage to pass a bill 20 some odd years ago that exempts them from any consumer protection that any other product manufactured by any other business in this country has. Now, I can understand there are concerns this might be vague. It doesn't mean to get rid of the idea or the bill. You can tighten it up. And certainly there are many responsible gun owners. But there are other others that act with impunity because of the shield that this federal law has provided. Online sellers who negligently allow children to purchase firearm accessories or ghost guns, manufacturers who fail to incorporate safety technologies that could prevent unintentional shootings by children, and dealers who facilitate gun trafficking, which is devastating to communities in Hawaii and throughout the country. So this is a common sense bill, an equitable bill that will not harm responsible law-abiding actors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Glenn Gingo. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas and Vice Chair Takayama, and happy Valentine's Day. I'm in opposition to the bill. I've firsthand been involved in the firearm industry for quite a while, not only as an instructor and shooting sports enthusiast, but since the time I was very young, I was involved in safe shooting sports. I see essentially a lot of the discussion that we've had in firearms forums. I see it through the lens of community safety. I always have. That's first and foremost. I can tell you that we have a very good department at our federal level, and that's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, that do spend a considerable amount of time scrutinizing FFLs, or Federal Firearms Licensed Dealers. I've seen firsthand how they investigate. I've seen firsthand how they look at files, review sales receipts, and look at these FFLs with a high degree of scrutiny. And I think we have that agency in place. We should support an agency that does that at the federal level. But becoming unreasonable and trickling down to the local level and expect to be making duplicative laws to handle a situation where we do have bad actors in every industry, that's without a doubt. But like I said, firsthand, looking at what the ATF does, witnessing firsthand how they scrutinize FFLs and the requirements that are made with FFLs to do the right thing is pretty amazing. So those that don't have that knowledge, I encourage you to look at these men and women of the ATF and what they do look at. And these small business owners that have FFLs, how they're being looked at, and to the point now where there's so much pressure from the government to act that it almost turns into almost a harassment of their business. So anyway, thank you very much for having me up for
Certainly.
testimony.
Thank you for testifying. Testimony over here. Yes, Mr. Yukutake, please proceed.
Aloha, Todd Yukutake, represent the Hawaii Farms Coalition. Aloha. I had trouble submitting my testimony, so I had to submit it late. But this bill we're opposed to this bill because it's designed to put local gun stores out of business. And it could also one day set a precedent for other industries too. It basically diverts the blame from the criminal to the gun store. The firearm industry is one of the most highly regulated. You need a federal firearms license from the federal government. There's also federal, state, and county laws governing it. Many regulations. They go through audits, inspections, and background checks. They also have slim margins, so they can't lose. They don't have the money to lose. Lawsuits put gun stores in a losing situation. Even if they win a lawsuit, they will pay hundreds of thousands in legal fees and go out of business. Making gun stores liable for unlawful use of their products, it's the responsibility of, gun stores don't want to sell things to criminals, and they do their best not to. They also want to secure their items. They don't want it stolen because they're moral people. So it's basically, it's the responsibility of law enforcement, not the gun stores, to police the criminals and prevent them from buying the things, keeping them in jail, right? Yeah, and like I said, this could apply to other industries. You know, if a person buys a knife from a store and uses it in a crime, is that store liable now for this? Just a few other things. Goes over assaultive purposes as far as the types of firearm products that aren't allowed. That's a vague term. And marketing to minors, just one last thing. Minors have a big role in the firearms community. High school shooting competitions, Boy Scouts, hunting, Olympics. Guns are marketed to minors for these purposes. Firearms teaches minors morals, safety, and responsibility. And I think more of that is needed nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Please come up.
Aloha Kayaka Chair, Vice Chair, and the JHA Committee. Angela Melody Young testifying just to provide comments. So HB 426 authorizes any person who has suffered harm because of a firearm industry's members' violation of the standards of conduct to bring to court a civil action. So authorizes the Attorney General, AG, and county prosecutors to bring civil action against a firearm industry member for violations and abuse of firearms. So we want to provide comments. We are in support. So in a congressional hearing, June 2022, the representative from New York testified amongst a panel of expert witnesses, and she asked one of the expert witnesses, in your view, are you seeing a correlation between gun deaths and gun profit? The expert witness answered yes. So if research and evidence proves that more guns equates to more death, it is reasonable to conclude that we need to enhance the policies in order to protect people from abuse of the Second Amendment. Congress passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act last year, and it has been 3 decades since Congress has passed a Gun Control Act. So, you know, to address the argument that was presented before me about if a gun store should be liable, guns are regulated with high scrutiny because of what it is.
That'd be great.
Right, just like how if you get caffeine from Longs, it's not regulated because it's not a Schedule I drug, like marijuana, as declared by the DEA. So if the federal government declares that it should be regulated and scrutinized, then it should be. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing here to testify on this measure? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, we will move on to House Bill 984. This is relating to firearms. This is a bill proposed by the administration in order to address the decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, which requires that all states shall come up with a system to determine and process applications for concealed carry weapons licenses. And so this is a recommendation from the administration, House Bill 984. First up, we have the Attorney General, Mr. David Day. Thank you for being here. Please proceed.
Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Dave Day. I am the Special Assistant to Attorney General Ann Lopez. For nearly 2 centuries, Hawaii has enacted and perpetuated reasonable, common-sense gun laws intended to keep the people safe from gun violence. And this tradition prevailed over the centuries, as is reflected in Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 134, which pertains to firearms and dangerous weapons. Last year, 2022, however, was a pivotal year for firearm regulation in our country. Among other things, prior to 2022, handguns were generally not permitted to be carried in public in Hawaii, whether concealed or openly, unless a person could demonstrate an urgency or a specific need. Prior to 2022, handgun laws nationwide, when challenged in court under the Second Amendment, were subjected to a legal analysis known as ends means. This test involved consideration of interests between citizens wishing to carry guns and the state's modern concerns framed in a modern context. But following the U.S. Supreme Court's 2022 case of New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, also known as the Bruin case, states are generally required to allow law-abiding people to carry concealed firearms in public. More than this, Hawaii has had to reassess its long-standing laws regulating firearms under a new legal framework set forth in Bruin, which introduced a new legal test concerning whether a regulation is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearms regulation. To address Bruin, HB 984 reframes the state's robust firearms laws to exist in a post-Bruin landscape. HB 984 provides that concealed carry licensees must go through licensing procedures and training intended to ensure that a person has the essential character, temperament, knowledge, and ability to safely carry a firearm in public. HB 984 includes provisions intended to keep firearms out of, quote, sensitive locations, which the U.S. Supreme Court has stated is a lawful use of legislative power. Such locations proposed in the bill are locations of governmental activity, locations with vulnerable populations, and high-density locations.
Just let me interrupt for a moment. I would like to give you some more time to explain this bill, since it's your bill as the introducer. So you've got more than the 2 minutes that I usually give to others. So please proceed, but don't go on forever.
Okay, understood.
Okay, thank you.
HB 984 requires people to carry a license with them at all times while carrying a firearm, and requires such licensees to disclose the presence of a firearm if stopped by police in the interest of protecting law enforcement and avoiding misunderstandings. HB 984 provides for the mandatory securing of firearms in unattended vehicles in a locked container. The bill prohibits the carrying of a firearm while under the influence of alcohol or a controlled substance. The bill honors private property rights and provides owners of property open to the public with the ability to choose whether or not to allow firearms onto their property. HB 984 revises, clarifies, and focuses Hawaii's law concerning firearm ownership for those with mental illnesses. This bill also carefully protects Second Amendment rights by providing for a process for contesting denials of a permit to acquire a firearm or for a license to carry. The Department of the Attorney General has proposed just a few changes. First is the deletion of Section 2, which is designated as Section 134B in the bill, and lines 1 through 3 on page 41, which concerns mandatory insurance coverage for individuals who carry firearms in public. The department believes that a more extensive inquiry is required and recommends in its stead the passage of a resolution requesting the Legislative Reference Bureau to conduct a study analyzing the use and effectiveness of systems of insurance and other financial responsibility requirements associated with the public carry of firearms. Second, after consultation with law enforcement, we recommend clarifying that a vehicle-safe storage depository should be impact and tamper-resistant rather than fire impact and tamper-resistant, as found on page 11, lines 17 through 18 of the bill. Third, the department notes a Rams error typo on page 24, lines 14 through 15. Additionally, this is a final comment, we appreciate the written testimony of the Kauai and Maui Police Departments and support changes along those lines suggested. HB 984 will help preserve the safe and welcoming character of our society while also respecting the exercise of Second Amendment rights. In the fast-changing field of Second Amendment law, HB 984 is a bill that the Department of the Attorney General can defend. We strongly support it.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony with comments from Todd Raybuck, the Kauai Police Department. And we have testimony from the Maui Police Department. Testimony with comments from the Honolulu Police.
Good afternoon, Chair. Again, Major Joseph Trinidad, Home Police Department. Again, I have the Records and ID Division. Again, I'm responsible for the firearms section. The Holland Police Department supports the intent of House Bill 984 and offers the following concerns. We suggest enhanced sentencing for persons who have a firearm in their possession in areas of sensitive places and are not issued a license under Section 134-9 under HRS and are not exempt per Section 134-11, again, of the HRS. The section of the bill regarding unlawful conduct while carrying a firearm penalty would be difficult to enforce and prosecute. The Holland Police Department appreciates the intent of this section. However, enforcement and prosecution of this section would require either the observation of the consumption of alcohol, intoxicating liquor, or controlled substance, or proof of intoxication. Proof of intoxication would require a legal threshold and limit and administrative procedures to legally allow law enforcement to draw blood or take a breath sample. Additionally, we are concerned with the section of this bill that outlines the required information on the license to carry card itself. Each county within the state of Hawaii has different equipment and capabilities. The Holland Police Department currently does not have the equipment to capture the licensee signature and will require additional funding to purchase the necessary equipment. An additional safety concern is that the licensee address and date of birth would be exposed if his or her card was lost. The private sale or transfer of firearms, which should require the contact information of both parties to include addresses and telephone numbers. The current statute only requires the name of the parties, which does not allow for the police to contact the individuals if there are questions regarding the transfer or sale of the firearm. The Holland Police Department supports the requirement for licensees to have their license in their possession. It also requires a person carrying a firearm to disclose to law enforcement officers that they are carrying a firearm and the location of their firearm. We also support the responsible storage and safekeeping of all firearms at all times, including vehicles. Each year, firearms are acquired illegally by theft from a vehicle, possibly putting these firearms in the possession of criminals. And lastly, the Honolulu Police Department supports changing the $10 licensing fee to a non-refundable $150 application fee. The application fee would assist with the administrative costs for staffing and supplies are used to process the license to carry application packets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Next, we have testimony in opposition from Jamie Detweiler, Hawaii Federation of Republican Women. Please proceed, Ms. Detweiler.
Aloha, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, and members of the committee. I stand in strong opposition of HB 984 with the basis of the U.S. Constitution as the foundation. I want to make a point also that's contained in my written testimony that I stand on. And we can all agree that violent crimes involving firearms are tragic. While the authors of this bill may disagree with some of the tenets in the Bruin decision, it may not disobey it. So I'd like to remind the folks that are making the laws of this. Additionally, I'd like to draw your attention to page 19 of HB 984, specifically line 12, which talks about arming aliens, making accommodations for aliens. And it breaks it down into aliens ages 18 years or more, and then aliens ages 18, 21 and above. I'm concerned about this. We're putting all these restrictions on law-abiding, trained, licensed gun owners, citizens of the United States, while we're making accommodations for aliens. Help me to understand why we're making that accommodation. And you can answer that later. I'm sure there's going to be further discussion on this. And lastly, I'd like to highlight also that, again, who is going to adjudicate the character and temperament of a licensed, trained, certified U.S. citizen gun owner? What are their credentials? How are you going to do that? And then also, getting back to the alien accommodation, there's time limits on those. 6 months? Who's going to follow up on that? Who's going to retrieve those firearms from those individuals? I'm concerned for the safety and well-being of our community. And once again, I stand in strong opposition of HB 984. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from Tina Yamaki, Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Welcome. Please proceed.
Aloha and happy Valentine's Day. I'm Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii, and we are in support of this measure. But we would like to request that retailers also be included in sensitive places. We understand that we are under commercial businesses, but we would like to make it clear that the public carrying concealed firearms is not allowed at retail locations. If one retailer allows it and the other one doesn't, you can do it here, but you can't do it there. It's harder for the HPD to enforce all of these things. We would also like to point out that on any given day, there is a large public gathering of shoppers at any retail stores and in shopping malls. On a daily basis, we're being hit by thieves who shoplift, and they're fighting back now. And what we're scared of is that a Good Samaritan is going to try and be the hero and try and shoot this person or fight back. And, God forbid that one of our customers or our employee gets hit. We don't want customers to not feel safe coming into our stores and our employees not feeling safe coming to work. We want to be sure it's a safe environment for all. I also want to point out that active shooters are prevalent in malls across the United States. In 2022 alone, there are over 13 shopping malls that had active shooters, and I think there's another 3 or 4 that had false claims that there was an active shooter. There was one young male who actually shot one of the active shooters, and we don't want to see this as a trend, is where everybody thinks that they're going to be the hero and shoot this person and end up shooting some innocent person because of that. We realize that when you're on a shooting range and when you're in a real life situation, it's very different. Your adrenaline is going, you have split second to make that decision. And the heightened reactions are instantaneous and mistakes can be made. And unlike video games, there's no reset button or do-over when somebody gets hurt. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from Crystal Lopelato with Everytown for Gun Safety.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Crystal Lopelato, and I serve as Policy Counsel for Everytown for Gun Safety, here in support of HB 984. This bill is essential for keeping Hawaii communities protected from the risks imposed by the Supreme Court's decision in the Bruin versus New York State Rifle and Pistol Association case. As many of you know, Hawaii state law had strong criteria that had to be met before a person could be issued a concealed carry license. An applicant had to demonstrate that they had an exceptional case and a specific reason to fear injury before they were given a license to carry a hidden loaded gun in public. When the Bruin decision struck down New York's good cause requirement for concealed carry permits, the Supreme Court also invalidated Hawaii's exceptional case requirement along with the laws in several other states. Our team at Everytown has been working closely with the states whose laws were impacted by the Bruin ruling, and we've identified several key safety gaps that need to be filled in Bruin's wake. States like Hawaii now need to create detailed eligibility requirements for who can carry guns in public, with the goal of ensuring that anyone licensed to carry a gun in public has received proper safety training and that applicants have been carefully vetted under objective standards. We also need to see thoughtful delineation of where concealed carry license holders can and can't bring guns in public, including making sure that guns aren't allowed in places where they never belong, like playgrounds, bars, or government buildings. This bill meets those needs, and it's written to be consistent with the constitutional boundaries of the Supreme Court's decision in Bruin. It includes due process protections for license denials and an opportunity to appeal those decisions. We urge your support of HB 984. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Jerry Ewan. Testimony in support from Tiffany Yajima. Testimony in support from Chris Marvin. Thank you for being here. Please proceed.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, aloha awinala. I am Chris Marvin. I'm a retired Army officer, a combat wounded veteran of the war in Afghanistan, and I represent the Everytown Veterans Advisory Council. I stand by my submitted testimony strongly in support of HB 984, and I'd like to emphasize 2 points. First, Hawaii has the lowest rates of gun injury and death in the nation, and we must keep it that way. Opponents of this bill are asking for permission to potentially use their firearms as lethal criminal intervention tools. I've been to combat. Even justified killings are gruesome and a huge moral toll on the community. We should do all we can to discourage vigilantism and extrajudicial killings. Second, This bill will not only apply to the well-qualified, well-trained, responsible gun users who vocally oppose it. That includes the man who was in this room earlier carrying a firearm. If you didn't see him, he was in the back of the room. He was armed, and the sergeant of arms asked him to leave. When I saw him, I assumed that he was a properly licensed armed guard currently on duty, and he announced his possession of a gun to the sergeant at arms, although maybe that's not true. I also assumed he was extensively well-trained and that no one in this room should fear him. I also have extensive weapons training, but most Hawaii residents do not. This law needs to apply to the least common denominator. Ask the bill's opponents when they come up here if they believe that every potential gun consumer in Hawaii is as safe, experienced, and responsible as they are. They will tell you no. And that is why we need HB 984. Before I go, one more thought on the man in the back who was carrying the firearm. Maybe he wasn't an armed guard. Maybe he was one of the early post-Bruin applicants who received a license to carry a firearm but from the county. If that's true, he was allowed to carry in his personal capacity in a government building. Why?
Thank you.
Because we haven't passed this law yet. We need HB 984.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Rachel Logan. Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Rachel Logan. I'm a volunteer with the Hawaii chapter of Moms Demand Action. We are not an anti-Second Amendment group. We support common sense gun legislation. I believe in the Second Amendment right to bear arms, but I do not believe that guns are appropriate everywhere in our modern society. I do not wish to take someone's handguns away. I support common sense gun laws. Without this bill, we are expected to trust total strangers to be armed, silent protectors throughout our community. That is a very, very big ask. Guns don't make everyone feel safe. Hawaii has been one of the safest states for gun violence for decades, and we need to preserve that. Putting guns out into our community will increase the risk of injury and violence just by their presence because they're now part of the equation, such as the man who was sitting in here previously. It's a really big deal because our community can be pretty hot-headed at times. To go from moving freely through my community without having to think about guns to now having to review a list and weigh the possibility because hundreds of gun permits are waiting in the wings. Hundreds. Seriously, hundreds of armed protectors. That's a huge culture shift in our community, and I think we should be cautious and anticipate ramifications. Military bases don't allow concealed carry. The nation's highest ranking military officer has said he doesn't think soldiers should carry concealed weapons on base. This gives me pause, and I think it should for you as well. If the United States military doesn't think concealed carry is wise, even in a heavily controlled area such as the base, why do we think the general public are qualified for unfettered access throughout our community to carry guns? If we want people to act with firearm common sense, we have to set the precedent by passing common sense gun legislation. The law has changed, and we must respect the law. But if we must have concealed weapons in our community, there should be some limits and not just federal buildings. They don't belong in schools or parks or other places where children play. They shouldn't be allowed where alcohol is sold and consumed. When I take my young children to the grocery store, or to the beach, I don't want to have to weigh the possibility of guns now being out there. So I'd really appreciate you guys considering this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Andrew Namiki Roberts. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. I apologize, I had to unmute myself. I'm sorry I can't be there today. I have to be at work. I am not a paid lobbyist. I am, however, a director of Hawaii Firearms Coalition, representing Hawaii's 125,000 law-abiding registered firearms owners. We are in great opposition to this bill. I wish that you will take note of my written testimony. I've covered almost every part of the bill in that. We are in opposition to this mainly because these are not traditionally historic places. The sensitive places list is far too long. Following this list would allow law-abiding citizens to carry a firearm on a sidewalk, and that is it. Every other place in the entire state would be excluded. It still leaves in place the four-tier system that we have where different counties have different sets of rules. We heard earlier that the Attorney General's office is preparing to defend this bill, and that's something that they will have to do if this bill is passed in its current status. Right now, I believe the total is around $500,000 that the Attorney General and the counties have spent fighting Second Amendment lawsuits. They have not won a single lawsuit so far in the last 7 years. With that, if a lawsuit does come upon this, it won't be challenging the changes made in this bill. I issue words of caution. I am not necessarily against some gun laws. I'm not against sensitive places as long as the list is short and to the point. It's protecting very specific places, not everywhere. But if a lawsuit does come up as a result of this law passing or this bill passing, we're not going to go after the wording of this law. We're not going to go after the wording of this bill. We will go after the entirety of the HRS. The Supreme Court has ruled that laws regulating firearms have to be historic and they have to be traditional. Before this bill moves forward, the Attorney General should have to provide a historical analysis of all parts of this bill to the legislators, explaining how they intend to defend this and what these historical analogies are. Because this law has been challenged in other states, New York, New Jersey, California, and they have been shot down every single time. I appreciate your time and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. Thanks for taking the time to do that. Next, we have testimony from Todd Yukutake. Mr. Yukutake, floor is yours. Please proceed.
Aloha, Todd Yukutake. I'm opposed to this bill. All firearm regulations require text, history, and tradition per the Supreme Court ruling decision last year. This bill does not provide that. I would suggest that you ask the AG for that information and don't pass this bill until you're able to read it and research it and make sure that this qualifies. Text, history, and tradition means basically there laws were already in place in the states. Generally, we're not just talking one small town here and there, but generally in the population at the time of the U.S. Constitution ratification in 1791. So make sure you have that before you do your vote. I'm against most of the sensitive places because they do not meet this standard. I would accept the places that the Supreme Court said would be acceptable, but basically government buildings, schools, polling places, legislative assemblies, and courthouses. And like was said in the earlier testimony, military bases are very secure. They don't allow guns. There's a reason for this. They're extremely secure. Everyone has to go through screening. Your car has to be checked, etc. if you're not a military member. There's a strong armed security presence. It's restricted access to only certain people. And I would apply this to any sensitive places that you pass. So any government buildings need armed guards, secure screening, and restricted access. So please consider that. As far as the rest of this bill, I'm opposed to most of the sections. As far as banning possession for minor offenses, could be something simple as firearm late registration, which some people do. Pushing for harassment, peeping Tom, that's no reason to deny arms. Just one last thing. There are some good things about this bill, but the bad outweigh the good. I do ask that you incorporate Representative Kong's bill, I believe it's 1306, make it a 5-year permit, statewide, per carrier, and that reduces the burden of the requirements you put into this bill. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Thanks very much. Next, we have testimony from Soleil Roche. Next, we have testimony in support from Ilima DaCosta. Please proceed.
Aloha, I'm Ilima DaCosta. I'm a survivor. I wanted to kako'o the testimony that was submitted by Chris and Ms. Yamanaki. She's right. Once people are dead, they don't come back. This is a result, my daughter's death is the result of one bullet to the back of her head. One bullet. So if somebody comes up behind any one of us and shoots us in the back of the head, there's a possibility we might not come back. I'm uncomfortable with the notion that there could be somebody here in the room with us carrying a firearm. I don't think that that's reasonable at all. I think it's very reasonable to apply a lot of the same standards that we do for automobiles. So all due respect to the Attorney General's office, I think that we should require liability insurance, because we require liability insurance for automobiles right now. So if an automobile is a deadly weapon, so is a firearm. It's potentially a deadly weapon, and I urge you to pass HB 984 without delay. Mahalo.
Thanks very much. Testimony from Michael Rice. Please proceed, Mr. Rice.
One moment. Aloha. I stand in opposition to this bill. There's a whole lot wrong with it, and very few things that would even pass constitutional muster. One of the things I do like about it is that it allows you to store a vehicle in the car. However, there's problems with this. If you're going to make everywhere a sensitive place, and the only place I can carry is in my car between my house and wherever I'm going, then every time I need to park someplace, I'm gonna have to take out my gun, unload it, put it away in the safe, under my seat or wherever I put it. And then once I'm done with my business, I'm gonna have to do the reverse. I'm gonna have to load the gun back up, register around, holster it again. And during this time, somebody's watching me. One of three things can happen. They can ignore it and go about their day. They can see it, start to panic, call the police, saying there's a mass shooter on the loose, come quickly. Or, if it's a criminal, they just saw I have a gun, and they just saw which car I'm in. They can get a free gun that way, even if I put it in a locked case that, frankly, combines everything you want in this bill, which is, frankly, not feasible, especially the fireproofing part. We got criminals walking around with angle grinders to cut off catalytic converters. That's going to go through a safe within a couple minutes. And if they just steal my entire car, they'll have all the time they need to get my gun, despite the requirements for it to be tamper-proof and impact resistant. Every lock can be breached. How much more time do I have?
If you could wrap up, that'd be great.
All right. Well, another thing I wanted to cover is, as they said, most of the places that are sensitive, they have some form of security. The bus has no security. It has the bus driver, maybe a couple cameras. Even when the rail eventually opens, I hope to ride that, as I rely mostly on public transportation. They're not going to have even a driver on the train. They'll have cameras watching the doors, and if somebody's somebody at the transit center watching and calling the police if they see something happening. I stand on the rest of my testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next testimony from Marcus Tanaka. Please proceed, Mr. Tanaka.
So I oppose basically 99% of this bill. There's so much wrong with it. So the bill begins by saying 170 years of Hawaii's, gun history, things like that. But that doesn't meet the Supreme Court test of Bruin of history and tradition. History has to be further than 170 years, between 1790 to 1820-ish or so. So that doesn't count. And then any law also has to have tradition behind it. Was this law in place in majority of the United States at the time? That's what the introduction is leaving specifically out of this bill and other bills like that. It's conveniently leaving that part out. And then with the sensitive places, it basically bans firearms everywhere but the public sidewalk. And imagine if we treated any other right the same way we're going to treat this. You don't have freedom of speech unless you get permission from the establishment. I see Bible study at Kahala Mall all the time. Now, what if they couldn't study the Bible, because that's freedom of religion, at Kahala Mall unless they got permission, or any other religion there is. What if I want to pray before I eat dinner? I can't pray because I didn't get permission from the restaurant before I wanted to pray. So apply any other right, Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. Oh yeah, the cops can just walk in and frisk anyone they want because the establishment didn't give permission that says your Fourth Amendment right is intact in our place. Okay, so take that with for what it's worth, yeah. And then to go back with the malls. Recently in Illinois, an active shooter was stopped in 10 seconds. 10 seconds. And it will take you longer to get your phone out, unlock it, call 911, get through dispatch and tell them where you are before that active shooter was stopped. So nobody wants to shoot anyone because there are consequences even in a justified shooting, like to stop an active shooter. Nobody wants to do that, but we understand that the police can't be everywhere. It's just logistics. There's no police officer every 30 feet wherever you go.
If you could summarize, sir, that'd be great.
Well, okay, summarize up. Basically, this whole bill is bad. And just because someone is stealing something doesn't mean you can shoot them. You need to follow the Hawaii use of deadly force law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Lori Fujimoto in opposition, and testimony from Mitchell Villarreal in opposition. Testimony from Michael Elliott. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Vice Chair, and members. My name is Mike Elliott. I'm a small business owner, retired naval officer, multiple combat tours, and I'm here to testify in opposition to this bill. We've been over to the City Council, we've been over to the Senate chambers with very similar bills, which were pretty much cut and paste from the New York and New Jersey bills. I recommend that you look at the current status of New York and New Jersey at the federal level, and with the testimony I submitted, Judge Baum's ruling and issuing the TRO on those, which basically right now restricts enforcement on any of those places. And we're going to be in the situation where those standards of the 5 that we've talked about with the legislator, polling places, et cetera, those 5 are what it's really going to end up coming down to. And that's pretty much been the standard in other states. If you look at sensitive places in states that have had concealed carry or open carry for a number of years, that's pretty much what they are. The bans on public or having people put up signs in their stores and stuff, some judges have already looked at this and said this could be considered coerced speech by the government, forcing individuals to make a declaration. The Merchants Association talking about these hypotheticals, that's really not what this is about. You have to be, if you're a concealed carrier, you have certain standards by which you're allowed to use deadly force, and that is extremely limited. There's no vigilante justice. That's a crime. Those things are murder. Okay, so that's outside the scope of the concealed carry permit. I do applaud Representative Kong's 5-year standardization between the islands. It makes a lot more sense. It eases a burden on the chiefs of police. And the denials and expansions, the late firearm registration, the mental health checks, there's a lot of subjectivity to that. Those need to have an objective medical doctor do those, and we recommend that be done. And the, temperament and character, that's very subjective too, and that's going to be kicked out also, because that kind of puts us back to where we were prior to the Bruin decision, where the chief of police is allowed to make a choice as to subjectivity of an individual's character.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your testimony. Next testimony from John Abbott. Welcome. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. My name is John Abbott. I'm a licensed electrician here in Honolulu. I'm also licensed in 3 other states. I bring that up because a journeyman's license is like a doctor's license. And the reason why it's licensed is because we are given the authority to do things that are deadly. I deal with deadly amounts of electricity every day. And if I don't do something right, your house will burn down. Someone will get killed. I'm entrusted with that because I've passed the requirements. Likewise, I'm the 4th person to receive my concealed carry license in Honolulu County. And I have to say, when I read this bill, all I could think of is the person who wrote this hates gun owners. They hate their fellow citizens and the rights that we have as Americans. It's really disturbing. And I'm also an instructor, a pistol instructor. I have taught hundreds of my fellow citizens how to safely handle and use a pistol. And when I see this, all I can see is they're trying to put red tape in front of the ability for any normal person to get over and actually have the right to carry their firearm. Okay? For instance, to apply for a concealed carry license, a non-refundable fee of $150 shall be charged to apply, What other right do you have to pay $150 to exercise? It's a poll tax. I know it's a dirty word, but this is what this is. The requirements that would make the chief of police responsible for issuing the ability for who's able to instruct people in getting a non-concealed carry license, but also to regular pistol license, instead of having the NRA certified instructors do it like we've done for the past 30 years, is just another obstacle. I took this chief of police. I applied for my concealed carry license on June 23rd. I just got it in January. So it means it's gonna take 6 months for an average person to get certified to teach anyone to carry a pistol. That'll stop all applications to conceal carry and also pistol permits. And I think that's the intention of this bill. I urge you to oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Lynn Johnson. Next, we have testimony from Patty May. And testimony from Sheila Walker. Next, testimony from Jason Wolford. Please proceed, Mr. Wolford.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I stand on my written testimony in strong opposition to this bill. One of the things in this bill, there is no time limit placed on concealed carry license to be approved, as there is with permits to acquire. This could allow the police department to take as long as they wish to grant me my constitutional right. Currently, the Maui Police Department division is only open 4 days a week. How could they possibly process an application, search one's social media, follow up with the references that are required in this bill, as well as have an in-person interview and use this very subjective temperament and characters, which is very objective, not subjective, in order to receive my permit? Not to mention, just a permit to acquire would also be taking much longer than the 14 days. The concealed carry permit of $150 registration fee, as stated before, is just that. It is a poll tax on somebody's right to keep and bear arms. I would also like that this bill would have that the permits are issued to the person and not per firearm, and also that the rules be unified throughout the state so that one person would not be legal in one county and illegal in another and wind up committing an offense. There should be a statewide permitting system and not county by county. It leads to too much of a patchwork of rules and regulations for people to possibly be able to navigate and still remain law-abiding citizens. Thank you for your time. I stand by my testimony.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Dirk Silken. Please proceed.
Present. Aloha all. My name is Dirk Silken. I stand by my written testimony opposing House Bill 984 as written. This bill has heavy restrictions against law-abiding citizens who are authorized and certified by the county chiefs to conceal carry a firearm they legally own. The bill is written only restricting those who follow the law now. It does nothing to stop the criminals who are a danger to the public. This bill will negatively also affect lower income people in order for them to meet the requirements as written, and they may not be able to afford the cost and possibly deny them the ability to defend themselves or the ones they love. The current law and this bill wants the law-abiding citizen to go through extra steps just to exercise a constitutional right. We have a driver's license that covers us for the entire state and all the vehicles we own. A concealed carry license should also cover the whole state, no matter which county chief issues the concealed carry license. This same concealed carry license should also cover each of our legally registered handguns. I don't need 3 driver's licenses for the 3 cars my family has. This bill also wastes more of our law enforcement resources as they are already shorthanded. I would much rather they spend their time going after the criminals that are out there than the real danger, who are being a real danger to the people of Hawaii. Just like the Mililani Walmart attack, the criminal had a criminal bench warrant out for his arrest since October last year. Maybe if our law enforcement could focus more on that, we could all be safer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Stephen Lee. Please
Good afternoon,
proceed.
Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I strongly oppose House Bill 984. This bill is unconstitutional. Excuse me. The Supreme Court recently ruled in the Bruin decision that rules may establish sensitive places that limit access with guns. However, they are very limited. And this law clearly violates the U.S. Supreme Court as explained in the Bruin decision. It's also unconstitutional because it arbitrarily and subjectively denies a person's rights to own and bear guns guaranteed under the Constitution. Law enforcement officers take an oath to uphold the Constitution. You as lawmakers understand the importance of laws and the respect for laws. I urge you and respectively request that you respect the United States Constitution, the highest law in this country, and obey and enforce the law. I was talking to a police officer who came to my house on Sunday to watch the Super Bowl. I asked him about how would you feel about being put in a conflict situation by a bill such as this that would require you to violate your oath to uphold the Constitution to enforce this unconstitutional law. He said it'd be a conflict. Entire law enforcement agencies on the mainland with similar restrictive laws have refused to enforce such unconstitutional laws. I ask you to please respect our Constitution and oppose this law. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next testimony from Glennon Gingo.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Tarnas. Vice Chair Takayama. Again, happy Valentine's Day. The clock is ticking.
I'm trying to be as
I've got to do the right. I got to do the right thing this evening. That's for sure. I made notes on my Valentine's card here. She's not going to like that very much, I don't think. But,
Glennon, man, you're going to get in trouble.
But she's also a firearms.
Anyway, she supports you being here. Why don't you please
She
proceed
does.
with your
She
testimony?
does, and as a former prosecutor, it was hard to convince her to take a firearm course, but after she did, she's an excellent shooter. I do teach, and I see through the lens of community safety. I always have. Just about everything I've done in my entire life of training students, working with youth, from aquatics to diving to firearm training and hunting. And there's a lot of unreasonable and unnecessary restrictions in this this proposal or this bill. And when you start to create those confusions, then that's actually what can create a problem. When you have people that don't know if they can be here or here, no matter what kind of training they have, if they're not sure of where they can be, then that creates a confusion that can lead to criminalizing their behavior. And we don't want to criminalize those law-abiding citizens that have taken the time to get proper training. An interesting trend in the training programs that I've been doing the last several years is that pre-COVID up till today is about 80% of all the classes I have for qualifying are women. And I don't look at most women as vigilantes, and I don't look at most women as irresponsible concealed carry holders. And I also want to focus on the label, concealed carry. When a firearm is properly concealed, nobody here is going to know. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Concealed carry is just that. Proper training is essential. I take a huge amount of responsibility, both as a volunteer and supporter of firearm safety, when I do a class. I have to impart upon these people the huge responsibility that they have to take in understanding the laws of our country, the laws of our state, and the laws of our counties. And that is a very important element of our training. And we need to maintain and let people know in the public that we stand for safety in what we do in our training. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Testimony next from Ryan Tinajero.
Representatives of the committee, I continue to stand on my written testimony in opposition to HB number 984. As already elaborated by my fellow peers, I'm not going to elaborate too much on highlight points already, but I did want to bring up a concern about the prima facie evidentiary basis problem. As it turns out, not everyone has the same access to property line maps for every property, business, government building on the island. And so this would create a problem for everyone to just criminalize the concealed carry of a firearm if someone honestly doesn't know where they're at, whether they're breaching a property line or not, as the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know. And creating a penalty for what someone honestly doesn't know just isn't justifiable in my perspective. And this puts a cost on the constituent, government, and also businesses, since requests for property lines are things that need to be generated, either printed out, resources need to be looked at. And so it's best to save your constituents time and not to penalize that aspect. Now, I'll modify part of my testimony to respond to a slander statement that was provided earlier by another testifier. They were stating that when someone is looking at other gun owners, do they really see if other gun owners are responsible? In my experience, yes, I normally see them. They're very educational and they are very informed. They always, are looking at laws. They're always concerned about, well-being, not just with respect to memorizing the, firearms safety rules, but also just well-being in general, like, as far as public safety and situational awareness goes. This is because most of them are, law enforcement officers, former military members, and the like. Not all, but majority are. When I'm in need, it's not every town that's there for me. It's not MDA. It's my fellow firearms owner. And when it comes to stopping crime, I'd urge you to stop crime that is in progress. As we just heard earlier, a silent go by, rather than create artificial criminals out of law-abiding citizens. Thank you for your time and available for any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. Next testimony from Berta Narbonne. That's all the testimony that it's been indicated that people are here to testify. Oh, you're okay.
I thought I got to figure that out.
So if there's anyone else wishing to testify, please, we'll work our way first.
Okay.
Mr. Neyman.
My parking's backwards.
Yep, please go ahead.
Okay. Hello again, Deb Nemat here. I will just a couple of points. First of all, in terms of where things are in the courts on the mainland, the TRO has been suspended, and it is now gone to an appellate court, and the TRO is suspended until the appellate court decides. Also, the Supreme Court in the concurring decisions made clear that this bill is not a regulatory straitjacket, and you can define sensitive places if you have objective criteria to do so. The other thing is, I know people here have talked about law-abiding gun owners who know the works. There was a gentleman here who came in with an unconcealed weapon.
We understand.
And he had a jacket on that looked very official, armored armed guards. As far as
If you could focus your comments on the bill, that would be great.
Okay. As you can tell, something like that, I didn't have to worry about that in Hawaii for forever, and now we do. Okay. Your job here is to legislate for all of us, okay? Gun advocates have testified here and other venues. They're arguing for themselves, for their individual rights. What about the 65% of the people who were recently polled that want strict gun safety considerations in Hawaii? I ask you to focus on that, keep your eyes on the prize, and I understand these individuals have rights, but we have rights too, and we have a right to not worry about our kids being shot at school. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Testimony in the back. Oh, yes, go ahead, please. Introduce yourself. Come on up.
Hello, my name's Alan Beck. I'm an attorney that represents the Hawaii Firearms Coalition. I've successfully sued the state of Hawaii on a number of occasions, and I think that this bill is opening up the state to liability. The laws at issue here are not grounded in historical tradition. Basically, what the Supreme Court said is that it has to be sort of at least close to a law that was around the founding of the Second Amendment. And does anyone here think that 1791 there was prohibitions on carrying at the beach or when you're walking your dog? And that's what this bill has right now. Similar laws have been struck as unconstitutional in New Jersey and New York. It's correct what the woman that came behind me said. These are on appeal up to an appellate court. We're going to find out in due course what they say. So what I'm strongly suggesting before we have to go to the trouble of having to sue the state of Hawaii again and force the Attorney General's office to defend that law is to hold off for a year. Let's see what the New Jersey and New York cases do at the appellate level. Then next year we can come around after there's been opinions and we may decide, okay, this is what is now considered constitutional. That'll save the taxpayers money, that'll save us time, and it'll save everyone over the AG's office time. Just 1 year. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Back in the corner there. Yes, come on up, please. Introduce yourself. Thank you for being here. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. My name is Peter. I'm with Hawaii Tactical Division. I'm a firearms instructor. I did a written testimony, but I'd also like to speak. So what everyone's been calling earlier today, reasonable common sense gun laws, actually the Supreme Court has decided that it's not. And the Bruin decision has actually said that this is not a second-class right. And the reason why they stepped in is because people have been calling it reasonable common sense. No, it's infringement, actually. So that's how we ended up here today to talk about this stuff. This bill, sensitive places, can you guys ensure my safety in all of these places? No, you can't. In some of them you can. Where there's metal detectors at the courthouse and there's armed law enforcement, yes, you can. I understand that. But some of these other places, you guys can't ensure the safety of me or my family. Next thing, you know, a lot of these people are coming up here and giving testimony based on fear and emotion. And the other side is giving testimony based on the Constitution. And I want you to understand those two different things, fear and emotion versus the Constitution. That's kind of a big deal, you know, facts versus how we feel, right? Next is, the fear of people going out there and stray bullets hitting people and all this kind of stuff that's coming up is kind of nonsense. I mean, the other half of our nation has what they call permitless carry, and you don't even need a permit to carry there. And no stray bullets are hitting anybody. People aren't getting all innocent. People aren't getting all shot up. So this whole fabrication of this emotion of fear, I don't know where it's coming from. But let's try and stick to the Constitution. That's what you guys took an oath for, right? Not emotion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, any more testimony on this side of the room? We're going, no, okay, middle of the room. Anyone here? Yes, go ahead, please. Come on up. Introduce yourself. Please proceed.
Aloha, Angela, testifying in strong support on behalf of CARES. So I'm going to set up a premise. Let me pull up my document. Okay, so why should we highly scrutinize guns? Why should we have stricter gun policies? Okay, so as I was saying before, the drug classes, right? Drugs.
If you could focus on the bill.
Okay, I'll focus on the bill. All right. I was trying to set up a premise, but I'll just.
You can skip the premise. Just
Okay,
focus
okay.
on the bill.
Okay, so in the Bruin decision, the Supreme Court found that Manhattan did not satisfy the proper cause requirement, and therefore Manhattan could not be characterized as a sensitive place. So page 3 from the Bruin decision, it was because it lacked a historical basis, right? So as Hawaii tries to set the parameters to constitute a sensitive place, I think it outlined it very well in the measure. And also page 12, Bruin, it says, like most rights, the rights secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited. So people do not have the right to use their guns freely, and the Second Amendment right is not unlimited. That's what the Bruin text says. And in sensitive places, the result is that we should feel safer because those are going to be places where no guns are allowed. And on page 17, the writ of certiorari, it says, the self-defense right decreases only to the extent that the government's protective ability increases. So there is a careful balance drawn here. And also,
If you could summarize
to
it.
add to the gun control policies, I would also advise on overt video monitoring, like they did at the city council. They had to request video monitoring to protect the citizens in case of any potential harmful action. And that was something that was successful. So that could also be implemented in these situations to protect citizens from guns at the sensitive places. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify in the middle section here? If not, we'll go over to this section here. Yes, ma'am. Please come on up, introduce yourself. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Hi, my name is Alice Bellanine. I'm a private citizen. Thank you for letting me speak. I am in strong opposition of this bill. First of all, I would like to read the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This bill screams infringement from every point. I have a real problem with this. We are not focusing on safety. I've been handling firearms since I was 8 years old. I grew up in a state that you don't have to get a permit. I mean, I've lived in states where you can just go in and buy a gun. You can open carry. And people are not getting shot up. I agree with everything that Peter said, 100%. You said everything that I was going to say. Fear and emotion do not supersede the Constitution. The Constitution, you took an oath to it when you took the oath of office. People, we have got to get back to common sense. Our constitutional rights are being violated from every angle, and this bill is scary. It's scary because it screams infringement. And the Second Amendment, too, was not just about our right to bear arms for our protection and for hunting. It's about protecting us from a tyrannical government, which is what's happening here. The government is making more and more regulations, are becoming more and more tyrannical, so I'm opposed to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else over here wishing to give testimony? Yes, please come on up and introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Erica Yamauchi. I'm the statewide co-lead for Moms Demand Action Hawaii chapter. I stand on my written testimony in strong support of the bill as a gun violence survivor, mom of children in public schools, a business owner, and adjunct faculty member at the University of Hawaii. I want to thank the chair and vice chair for taking up this measure, and I just wanted to add that this week a new report on nationwide gun policy came out and clearly showed that where elected officials have taken action to pass life-saving gun safety laws, fewer people die by gun violence. Hawaii's low gun death incident isn't by accident. We have become a national leader when it comes to common sense policy, and I'm urging you to pass this bill to keep it that way. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else over here wishing to testify? No? Anyone on Zoom wishing to testify? If not, that's all the testimony that we have received. Questions, members? I have a question for the Attorney General, if I may. Come on up. In your testimony, you're suggesting to delete the insurance provision. What do you suggest we do in place of that? If you could explain that to the public.
Sure. The suggestion that we would have would be for the Legislative Research Bureau to conduct an inquiry into the feasibility and efficacy of an insurance program relating to, or pardon me, an insurance requirement that would be required for those who publicly carry. We think that a little bit more thought on that provision would be a good idea, and so that's the reason why we're suggesting that.
Okay. Because as far as I know, there are no current insurance products that this would match the requirement.
That's correct, and so the provision that was proposed had an effective date of, I believe, January 1st, 2025, to see if to allow the insurance market to develop. We think that, that thinking is not unreasonable, but ultimately it's something that deserves further attention.
Okay. There was a concern brought up about commercial retail businesses and malls. How would your proposed legislation work in a situation like a mall with a lot of different stores?
So I think that the bill is written, so if we could just use Ala Moana Mall as an example, I think that the issue would ultimately be one for the general lessor or the property owner to make a determination based upon, what any private property in commercial zones have the right to do, which is to exclude guns or not. And that would ultimately be their choice.
So it would be the mall owner, the lessor, that would be the one to make that determination.
I think that's correct, and that's, it's just partially common sense because, we're dealing with the parking areas, the common areas, and not just the individual stores.
Yeah, okay. Now, this measure deals only with concealed carry, and it does not change any of the laws related to open carry or hunting. Is that accurate?
That's an accurate statement.
Okay. What happens when someone who has a concealed carry weapon license passes away? Does that license become null and void?
Yes, it does. The license is personal to the individual, so when the individual dies, then the license is void.
Okay. Could you talk to us about this concern that the police departments have brought to us in their testimony, that this bill as written may actually place them in a situation where doing their job, it may be in conflict with the law? Could we exempt them, for example? Is that the best way to proceed?
I think that that's a very reasonable way of proceeding. The bill as written obviously would not subject, or is not intended to subject police officers to prosecution. Anything that we can do to clarify that, we're happy to help.
Okay. Now, this is only focused on Hawaii residents, is that correct? And not, so there is no reciprocity with other states?
That's correct. So my understanding is that if you were to get a Hawaii concealed carry license, other states in the union might offer our citizens reciprocity, but it would not be the other way around.
Okay, I'm interested in making this statewide standard and not have different counties have different things in here. What do we do to the bill in order to make that happen? Should we basically say that counties cannot make anything stricter and that this is going to be statewide? So if something is in one, if someone gets a concealed carry weapon license in one county, it's valid in another county?
Yes, so I think that the amendment that could be made would be to strike reference to the fact that the permit would be valid per county and make it valid per state or for the state. There's a provision in the bill, which we would call a non-preemption provision, which would allow the counties, and now I'm talking about the bill as currently drafted.
Yes.
That would, deletion of that would likely, or would prohibit the counties from doing that.
Okay. Some may view what is being required in this bill as a significant burden in order to get a concealed carry weapon license. I'm inclined to extend the period of time that the license is valid from 2 years to 4 years. Do you see any downside, and what would that be?
The only downside that comes to mind, and this is all policy based.
I know it's our decision.
Yeah. So the only downside is that as it stands, these sort of periodic checks to determine whether or not an individual is or is not eligible for a firearm, and I'm specifically talking about 134-7, would then be extended to 4 years instead of 2 years, and so there might be a few issues regarding eligibility that wouldn't come up within those extra 2 years. But beyond that, that would be a policy call, as you say.
Okay. Do you have any concerns with Hawaii, or the Honolulu Police Department's amendments about transfer to include address and phone number?
I don't think so at this time.
Okay. And the fee, 150. Okay. So that's good. Yes, that was a question that I've also gotten. Travel between islands. This would not change. This bill does not change the limitation that the federal government has on travel between islands and the requirements that they have about bringing a firearm. Is that correct?
Correct, and nor could it.
Okay. I'm interested in adding an annual reporting requirement for the Attorney General.
No objection.
Yeah, great. Okay. Okay, are there any other questions, members? I've been going through quite a few of them. If you have any other questions?
I have a question.
No, it's only us who get at this point, sorry. You got to give testimony, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone's testimony. But the way it works is after the testimony's all POW, then we do the questioning, and all the members have the opportunity to ask questions. But I'd be happy to chat with you afterward, but at this point, it's our job to ask the questions, and then we'll make a decision. So, members, any other questions? Any other questions? Seeing none, then thank you very much. And again, I want to acknowledge everybody's testimony on this. This is a very important policy matter, a lot of strong feelings about it, and I appreciate everyone's kokua in giving us your views on this. Our job is to balance the interests of all the residents in the state of Hawaii, respect the U.S. Constitution and the Hawaii Constitution, and find the right path forward. So we're the good guys too. We're trying to do our job, and I appreciate all of your advice. Our decision may not be something that you're happy with, and I would just ask you to bear with us. We're in the legislative process, and so bills, as they move from this committee, they go to another committee. They can be amended in that next committee. If they make it out of the House, they go to the Senate, and it goes through more committee hearings, and so it can be amended there. So whatever we decide here is not the end. This is just the beginning process. So I ask everyone to remain engaged in this process and help us come up with the best bill possible. Okay? I'm asking you as allies. Okay, so let's move right into decision making. Let me get my papers here. Okay, first up we have House Bill 202 relating to historic preservation reviews. I would like to pass out a House Draft 2. We're reviewing a House Draft 1. We're going to make more amendments, so it becomes a House Draft 2. Excuse me, and I would like to incorporate the amendments as suggested by the Department of Land and Natural Resources. It's already got a defective effective date, which means that it's still in process. It doesn't mean that we're going to start the bill in the year 3000, but it's just a defective date so that it's clear that it has more work to be done, and it'll probably come back to this committee for further review. So an HD2, just taking DLNR's amendments. Any questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 202 HD1 with further amendments, Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ganadin excused. Representative Holt? Aye. Representative Hashimoto?
Aye.
Representative Ichiyama?
Aye.
Representative Iligan?
Aye.
Representative Kong?
Aye.
Representative Mizuno?
Aye.
Representative Souza?
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation's been adopted.
Thank you very much. Next, moving on to House Bill 1200, related to establishing an unmanned aircraft systems program in the DLNR. My recommendation is to pass it out as is. It already has a defective date, so still has more work to be done, but I'm happy with the language in the bill. HB 1200 HD1 as is. Questions or concerns, members? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1200 HD1, passing as is, noting the excused absence of Representative Ganadin. Anyone wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to House Bill 668, relating to housing. Again, I'm happy with the language in here. It has a defective date, still moving forward to the next committee. My recommendation is to pass it out as is. Questions or concerns, members? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on HB 668 HD1, passing as is, noting the excused absence of Representative Ganadin. Anyone wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to House Bill 315 relating to flooding. Again, I'm happy with the language in here. It does have a defective date, so my recommendation is to pass it out as is, move it on to finance. Questions or concerns? Members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 315 HD1 passing as is, noting the absence of Representative Ganadin. Anyone wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, we're moving on to House Bill 279 relating to counties. My recommendation is pass out an amended version, so it would be HD2, and incorporate the Attorney General's amendments that they recommend. Questions or concerns? Members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 279 HD1 with further amendments, noting the absence of excused absence of Representative Ganadin. Anyone wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, moving on to House Bill 1404. We've had some good discussion in here about the Community Court Outreach Project. I think I need to give a little bit more time to the three parts to this program, which are the Office of the Public Defender, the Prosecuting Attorney, and the Judiciary, to work out some agreement on the language. So I'd like to defer this to Thursday's hearing at the 2 o'clock agenda, which would be Thursday, February 16th, here in this room, and we'll place it on the agenda for decision making. And if members or members of the public have any input, please contact me, but that's the main purpose why I'm deferring it, is to give Judiciary, public defenders, and prosecuting attorneys a chance to work out some agreed upon amendments to the bill. Next, moving on to House Bill 75. I recognize that this bill, by increasing the minimum amounts of liability insurance coverage required under motor vehicle insurance policy, is likely to increase premiums, but considering how long it's been that we've addressed this issue, unfortunately costs have gone up all over, and we have to address this as well in order to make sure that we're able to have the necessary minimum amount of liability insurance coverage for our motor vehicle insurance policies. So I recognize not all members are happy with this, but I would ask for your support. It does have a defective date. I would recommend to pass it out as is and put in the Standing Committee report that our recommendation is that the implementation date would be January 2025. So that's my recommendation. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 75 HD1 passing as is, noting the excused absence of Representative Ganadin. Anyone wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to House Bill 525 relating to the Uniform Commercial Code. This one, I need to make some technical amendments. Now, and also it already has a defective effective date. So my recommendation is pass out an HD2 with just those technical amendments. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 525 HD1 with further amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ganadin. Anyone wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to House Bill 537 relating to electronic smoking devices. I recommend additional amendments, so we would have an HD2. We have to change, tighten up the bill drafting in here with some changes to the definitions, because definitions of entity and persons are substantially similar, so we recommend incorporating the defined term person into the definition of entity. We also want to add, we want to change some language in 2 or 3 different places so that it's consistent from one part of the bill to another. So it says sold, used, or possessed, and that would be said in a number of different places. And then we need to make some technical amendments as well. And in addition, the Attorney General has amendments that I would like to incorporate in order to make the changes into Chapter 245, so that we actually can improve the efficiency of our not only the statute, but also implementation. That's my recommendation, members. Questions or concerns?
Chair.
Yes.
Real quickly. Thank you, Chair. After reading the Americans for Tax Reform testimony from Tim Andrews and rereading it, I'll be voting no. Thank you, sir.
Understood. Thank you, Representative Khan. Other questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 537 HD1 with further amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ganadin and the no vote of Representative Kong. Anyone else wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, we have House Bill 981 relating to criminal history background checks. I would like to amend this bill with an HD1. Need to make some technical amendments. And also, I'd like to adopt the Attorney General's amendments as well to this measure. Any questions or concerns, members? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 981 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ganadin. Anyone wishing to vote WR or no?
No.
On no votes for Representative Kong and Souza. Anyone else wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to House Bill 804. I'd like to follow the advice of the Attorney General, who said this was not necessary because it's already done. So that when the current system already is set up so that the terrorist screening center is checked, so that we don't have to add this requirement again, because it already takes place in the process. So my recommendation is to defer this. Okay? Next, House Bill 426. My recommendation is to pass this out with amendments. I need to make some technical amendments to this. This bill basically is a way to ensure accountability for those who are manufacturing and selling guns. And I appreciate that people are not, those testified against it do not want this, but I think it's worth continuing the discussion about it in the Senate. So I would like to move this out with that, just some technical amendments as an HD1. Questions or concerns? Members? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 426 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ganadin. Anyone wishing to vote WR or no?
No, please. Thank you.
No votes for Representative Kong and Souza. Anyone else wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Finally, moving on to the last bill, House Bill 984. Thank you again to everyone who's testified on this. And there's more to come. So this moves on to Finance Committee. My recommendation is pass it out with amendments. We need to make some amendments to a couple different ones. Let me work my way through it. I'd like to increase the period of that the license is good for from 2 years to 4 years. And I would like to make the necessary changes in the bill to make this concealed carry weapon license valid statewide so that the counties can't have different requirements. I'd like to delete the insurance provision in here that is in the bill, and rather we'll introduce a resolution to have the Legislative Reference Bureau do a study on it. I note that all commercial retail businesses are already included, so we're not going to make any change. I would like to, in the section that describes those healthcare professionals that will provide information about the health of the applicant and the mental health of the applicant, that it is not just physicians, but also includes physician assistants and advanced practice registered nurses, because there's plenty of rural areas that don't have enough physicians. I would like to include an exemption for police officers in here to address the concerns brought up by a couple different county police departments. I would like to add an annual reporting requirement from the Attorney General. I would like to adopt the Attorney General's amendments that he outlined in his testimony. We will make some technical amendments, and then I want to insert after, let's see, page 6, line 4, I want to make sure that it's clear that it includes adjacent parking areas. I want to insert on page 28, line 22, insert the words "and final decision" after the word "hearing." I want to make sure there's two parts of the bill that talk about healthcare providers who possess or identify any healthcare providers who possess or may possess such records. It's on page 18, line 19 and 20. I want to put it on page 45, line 17 to 21. I want to add the words "or would present" after the word "presents" on page 46. Where we were talking about the police, on page 47, line 16, I want to insert the words "or a designee of the chief of police." There's a couple of different errors where existing statutory language was omitted. We need to actually put that in there. And the new language is not properly underlined, so we'll correct that. Make some technical amendments in that regard. I want to defect the effective date because this is still something I want to see again. And I want to add one more sensitive place, and that is areas of public assembly to address some concerns that were brought up. I'm not going to include churches because I don't want to get in between, the First Amendment and Second Amendment fights on this. I'm not a constitutional attorney, but I'm doing my best, okay? I'm doing my best. And I listen to those who are around me who are constitutional law experts. Okay, I think I've covered all the, oh, right, I want to adopt the Honolulu Police Department's amendments, thank you. Transfer to include address and phone number, and the fee would be set at $150. Oh, right. And also in the Honolulu Police Department's testimony, I want to adopt their recommended amendment to suggest enhanced sentencing for persons who have a firearm in their possession in areas of sensitive places and are not issued a license under Section 134-9 HRS and not exempt for Section 134.11 as recommended by HPD. I got everything? Sorry for that long list, but that's best I can do. So with that, my recommendation is pass it out with those amendments. Questions or concerns, members?
I'll let it go.
Okay, all right. Any questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 984 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ganadin. Anyone wishing to vote WR or no?
No, please, thank you.
A no vote registered for Representative Souza
And Kong.
and Representative Kong. Anyone else wishing to vote WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here. You may not be happy with me for all these things, but I'm doing my best, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you afterward if you want to talk further about it, okay? Thank you. That's no more further business before this meeting, this committee. We are adjourned.